Hello, my friends. Today, the discussions continue about the idea that the war will end after Trump's inauguration. A Republican senator has even stated that Trump has a good deal ready for Ukraine.
This war is about money. People don't talk much about it. But you know, the richest country in all of Europe for rare earth minerals is Ukraine. $2 to $7 trillion worth of minerals that are rare earth minerals, very relevant to the 21st century. Ukraine's ready to do a deal with us, not the Russians. So it's in our interest to make sure that Russia doesn't take over the place. It's the breadbasket of really the developing world. 50% of all the food going to Africa comes out of Ukraine. We can make money and have an economic relationship with Ukraine that'd be very beneficial to us with peace. So Donald Trump's going to do a deal to get our money back, to enrich ourselves with rare earth minerals, a good deal for Ukraine and us, and he's going to bring peace. And Biden's been a disaster when it comes to containing bad guys.
It's very strange to hear people say that Ukraine has vast resources and is a breadbasket that fits the world, but then why are pensions only $100 and salaries just $300? It doesn't make sense. It's clear that Ukraine will have to pay for all the aid with resources, essentially resources that couldn't be mined and sold independently will now be extracted by other countries to offset the debt from military aid. And as we can see, they are talking openly about the fact that this is not about people, it's a fight over resources. What do you think about this? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's move on to the situation at the border in the Kursk direction, despite Russian objectives to push the Ukrainian forces back by January 20th, there has been no significant activity so far. They are likely trying to gather reserves for a later rapid offensive in this area. Experts suggest that if they manage to advance quickly, they could capture part of the Sumy region. This will depend on how prepared the Ukrainian forces are to hold the line, but so far there have been no changes here. Last night, the Russians reported that Ukraine started launching strikes on the Kursk region with Western weaponry. We are waiting for more details on this. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue their shelling, but there are no new offensive actions and the front line remains unchanged. In Vovchansk, the fighting doesn't stop, but the Russians are unable to advance even a meter, and the Ukrainian forces continue to successfully eliminate all advancing groups. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are currently conducting assaults only in the area of Glushkivka. Elsewhere, the situation has stabilized and the Russians are not showing significant activity for the time being. In the Borova direction, the Russians continue assaults on Zaporizhzhia and Zaluzhny High. Offensive actions on Novosilka are also ongoing, but there have been no changes over the past day. Further south, the Russians are still attempting to storm Kharkiv, although they previously managed to advance relatively quickly here. Today, the front line remains unchanged with no Russian successes. In the Crimea direction, the Russians are assaulting Terny and shelling Ivanivka. Otherwise, there are no changes at this time. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are shelling Bilohorivka as they have been unable to fully capture the settlement. They are also striking Siversk, but no new assaults have been launched yet. After recent advances, they appear to be building up reserves for future attacks. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians continue advancing into Chasiv Yar with fierce battles being fought for every meter. They are also attempting to break through towards Stupochki. However, for now, the Ukrainian forces are managing to hold the defense, keeping the front line unchanged. In the Toretsk direction, the Russians continue their fight for control of Toretsk, with intense battles over every meter of ground. The Ukrainian forces are doing their best to repel the attacks, and there have been no new changes in the front line in the past day, although the situation remains challenging. In the Pokrovsk direction, battles are ongoing for Myrolubivka, the village of Prominy, Sukhий Yar, Dachinske, Petrivka, Grigorivka, Pustinka, and the village of Pushkine. It appears that the largest Russian reserves are being directed toward breaking through toward the Dnipropetrovsk region to cut off all roads leading to Pokrovsk. However, the pace of their advance here has slowed as the Ukrainian forces are making every effort to destroy the advancing groups. As a result, the front line remains unchanged for the past day. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are not reducing their activity, pushing aggressively along the entire front line, with battles underway for control of central Kurakhove. They are also attempting to advance to complete an encirclement from both Rozliv and Sontsivka, aiming to reach the highway and trap a large number of Ukrainian forces to prevent their retreat. This tactic is intended to weaken the Ukrainian units, making further advances easier. Despite this, Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks, and there have been no significant changes over the past day, though the situation remains very challenging. The Ukrainian forces report that the Russians are attempting to advance towards Romanivka, but so far they are being held back. In the area around Velyka Novosilka, the Russians are also continuing heavy shelling of the frontline areas, with assaults on Rozdolne, which is now partly under their control, and attempts to break through from Novodaryevka. Ukrainian forces have previously indicated that if Rozdolne falls, it could create a catastrophic situation for Velyka Novosilka. Intense fighting is ongoing to delay any loss of this significant settlement for as long as possible. Ukrainian soldiers have noted that if Kurakhove and Velyka Novosilka are lost, the Russians may redirect all reserves toward the Pokrovsk direction and increase their push there. After a potential withdrawal from Kurakhove and Velyka Novosilka, the Pokrovsk or Konstantinivka operation could begin, said Bogdan Miroshnikov. The situation in the Kurakhove and Velyka Novosilka areas is worsening rapidly. In short, be prepared for a future retreat from both cities, after which the Pokrovsk operation may begin, or the Russians might shift their focus entirely on Konstantinivka, one of the two. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are attempting to advance toward the village of Kamyansk. Although a major Russian offensive hasn't yet begun, they appear to be preparing for it and are probing Ukrainian defenses. There have been no changes over the past day, and the fighting continues. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue trying to advance onto the islands, but with no success. Shelling of the right bank remains ongoing. Meanwhile, General Zaluzhny has stated that Europe is not prepared to go to war with Russia, warning that Russia could deplete Europe's air defense systems within a few months.
The number of airborne targets is growing, but the means to counter them are still too costly and therefore too limited in number. Based on this alone, I believe neither Britain nor European countries are ready, despite having sufficient F-16 aircraft with strong air defense capabilities. Within 2 to 3 months, their air defense systems could be completely depleted. Are they taking alternative measures to learn to deal with these airborne targets? It's hard to say, but likely not. Now let's look at the front line. In October, much like in September, approximately 4,500 guided aerial bombs were deployed. I'd like to point out that the KAB-500 has a warhead weighing 500 kilograms, Compare this with the Iskanders for 180 kilograms warhead. Imagine for 1,500 Iskanders on the front line. Does any European country, or even Britain, have at least 5,000 Patriot missiles to shoot down these guided bombs? I have my doubts, for the same reason they are extremely costly. As a result, it's not feasible to have an unlimited supply of them, as producing them is indeed challenging.
Zaluzhny's statement suggests that Europe would face serious challenges in a potential war against Russia. What do you think about this? So be sure to share your opinion in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.